Tonight on KPBS Evening Edition, San Diego residents are demanding action against climate change.
Denial is suicide. Can't run and hide. Denial is suicide.
Can't run and hide.
Why they're pushing congressional leaders to sign the Green New Deal. Plus, increasing diversity within the San Diego Police Department. Why residents say it's time for a change. And saving the monarch butterfly. Why the species is declining on the West Coast and how advocates are trying to help. KPBS Evening Edition starts right now. Good evening. It's Friday, June 7th. Thanks for joining us. I'm Ebony Monet. San Diego protesters demand action on climate change. Today, demonstrators gathered outside of Congresswoman Susan Davis's office. KPBS reporter Eric Anderson says they want her to support the Green New Deal.
Our planet!
Our future.
Our planet!
Our future.
The environmentalists hope to dial up pressure on their congressional representative to be more proactive on climate change issues. They praise Davis for moving toward more climate-friendly positions, but they say she could be actively supporting the Green New Deal. It's an economic stimulus plan that pushes for a sustainable economy.
We want her to take action.
San Diego 350 spokesman Michael Smith wants Davis to do three things.
We want her to sign off on H.R. 109, the Green New Deal, which over 100 of her colleagues in Congress have already signed on to. Secondly, we want her to take the pledge to eliminate fossil fuel funding from any of her campaign activities.
Smith says protesters also want Davis to hold a town hall meeting in her district so voters can talk about the threat posed by climate change.
Susan Davis! Step up or step aside!
17-year-old Aisha Wallace Palomares was among those protesting. The local high school student says her generation will suffer the consequences of decisions made today, and that's why she thinks the Green New Deal is so important.
Now! What do we want? It gives a starting point and it really lays the foundation for the future actions we have to take, and the legislation that follows will be more specific to specific items that need to be addressed.
Protesters plan to be out here every Friday until they get the results they're looking for. Eric Anderson, KPBS News.
Davis says the nation needs bold action on climate change, and she looks forward to working on the Green New Deal. A new report to the San Diego Police Department outlines ways to increase diversity on the force. KPBS reporter Priya Sridhar joins us now with details of the report. Priya?
The report comes from the San Diego Citizens Advisory Board on Police and Community Relations. For the past 2 years, the board has been holding public meetings across the city to find out residents' concerns regarding policing in the city. The board divided its work into 3 themes based on public comments: recruitment, training, and racial profiling. In the report, they say they want community residents to be more involved in the recruitment of police officers in their neighborhoods. They also say they want to diversify the police force beyond just hiring former members of the military.
If we get people that aren't so rigid with military experience, we're probably going to get different outcomes. That the apparent rudeness that's experienced in the first 30 seconds of interactions probably will not be an issue, because these people will be used to interacting with people of color, of people in underserved communities.
The board's research suggests 30% of San Diego's police department has a military background. They plan to present their findings to the police department on June 26th. Priya Sridhar, KPBS News.
Thanks, Priya. San Diego City Council members will decide today whether to fight to protect the city's pension reform measure. KPBS Metro reporter Andrew Bowen says courts have already found it violates state labor laws.
Since voters approved Prop B in 2012, newly hired city workers have been excluded from the city's pension system. The state Supreme Court ruled last year that the city broke the law when it placed that measure on the ballot without first negotiating with city labor unions. Now those unions are trying to get Prop B removed from the city charter. They say that's the only way the city's violation of the law can be corrected. City council members will decide in closed session Monday whether to argue it should be removed from the charter, or they could try to preserve Prop B and come up with some other way to compensate workers for missing out on guaranteed pensions. Either way, the cost of fixing the city's mistake is very unclear. Andrew Bowen, KPBS News.
The personal loan industry, also called payday loans, has not been regulated in California for decades, but that could soon change. KPBS reporter John Carroll explains a bill making its way through the legislature that would cap the amount lenders can charge.
The bill is called the Consumer Loan Reform Act. It's co-sponsored by San Diego Democratic Assemblywoman Lorena Gonzalez. Gonzalez moderated a panel discussion on the bill in downtown San Diego today. The bill would cap the interest rate lenders can charge at 35%. Gonzalez says the bill is necessary to keep so-called payday lenders from charging what she says are exorbitant interest rates on short-term loans. The trade group representing the lenders, the California Financial Service Providers, says the bill would effectively eliminate access to capital for people who can't get approved by banks and other lenders. Gonzalez says her bill would rein in the worst abuses in the industry.
Absolute ridiculousness of the rates that are being charged. You know, we're talking 100% interest, 200% interest. Well, once you actually find out the facts about it, I think, and you open yourself up to all the facts of the situation, you realize this is not something that's sustainable or something we should be doing.
The bill has moved out of the Assembly. 8 Republicans joined Democrats in supporting it. It next goes to the Senate Finance Committee, and if it passes there, to the full Senate. Governor Gavin Newsom has promised he'll sign the bill if it reaches his desk. John Carroll, KPBS News.
Thanks, John. If you are one of the thousands of San Diegans who drive to work alone each day, would you consider taking alternative transportation? That's the question posed in a recent transportation survey explained by KPBS's Maya Trabulsi.
The survey commissioned by SANDAG is being used to form a better understanding of how people in San Diego and western Riverside County choose to get to work and what it would take to get them to consider greener options. Of the 4,000 people who took the commute behavior survey, more than half said they would choose an alternative commute at least once a week. The factors that would encourage them to do so would be improvements in travel time, accessibility, and incentives. Cynthia Burke, Director of Applied Research at SANDAG, says finding ways to be competitive with solo driving will help reduce vehicle miles traveled, or VMT, and thus reduce greenhouse gas emissions.
We could just even get people exploring alternatives one day a week, and a significant proportion of individuals did that. We could have some type of effect on the VMT in the region.
84% of the people surveyed say they currently drive alone to work. Maya Trabulsi, KPBS News.
The last 2 years have not been kind to the monarch butterflies living along the West Coast. KPBS environment reporter Eric Anderson says their numbers have dipped below 30,000 this year, and the insect's future appears dim.
This Normal Heights front yard is a certified natural habitat.
If it's not food, it's not in the yard. It's got to be food for somebody, whether it be a butterfly, a certain type of butterfly, a bee, birds.
Rami Zamiski embraces the tranquil activity that surrounds her home.
It's just my little everything's okay spot.
Sprinkled among the colorful plants are different kinds of milkweed. That's important to Zamiski because out back, she's got an entire greenhouse devoted to raising and releasing monarch butterflies. She separates eggs from tiny caterpillars, separates tiny caterpillars from larger ones.
They just eat and eat and eat. And they don't even stop to poop. They just poop while they're eating. They're just ravenous. So if you have a little guy in there, there's a good chance he's going to get a chunk taken out of him. So it's best to keep them separate.
Once the caterpillars have finally eaten enough, they look for a place to hang and form their colorful chrysalis.
Unbelievable. Where did he come from?
Then Zamiski waits for the orange, black, and white butterfly to emerge.
So this guy's got a little more ways to go, and with the cooler, darker weather, he might wait a little bit longer.
Zamiski welcomes a couple hundred monarch butterflies into the world every month. She says caring for the iconic insects consumes her weekends, and she's willing to spend enough money to make sure there's plenty of milkweed on hand for the process.
Monarchs are probably one of the most, if not the most valuable insect in the world.
Bryce Simmons works at the Scripps Institution of Oceanography in San Diego.
Because people spend a lot of money to plant monarch gardens, they pay a lot of money to go see monarchs in Mexico and overwintering, or in the eucalyptus groves here, and they have very strong values in being able to see monarch butterflies.
Simmons helped develop a model that predicts the health of the monarch butterflies populations, both in the east and western United States.
So it turns out that the models that we use to describe how a population changes through time are the same as if we're modeling fish or monarch butterfly.
Those models show a steady and dramatic decline of monarchs on the west coast. The population topped 1.2 million in the 1990s, and Simmons says the number of migrating monarchs is currently on a perilous perch.
And what they use is an extinction threshold, or a point at which the population would hit it, and most likely it would now be in a vortex, an extinction vortex, where it won't be able to pull out. And they used as a number 30,000 individuals, 30,000 monarchs. Well, just this last winter, we were below that.
Pesticides, storms, and now even climate change are posing problems for the colorful butterfly. What was once a friendly habitat is turning more hostile.
Because in really dry, hot years, milkweed doesn't grow so well across the range of where it normally would, and they're obligate breeders on milkweed. They have to have milkweed in order to reproduce. And so, to some extent, wherever the milkweed isn't, the monarchs can't be.
But Simmons says it's the migration behavior that's likely at risk of going extinct, not the butterfly itself. Volunteers count the migrating butterflies when they gather at overwintering sites, typically a grove of eucalyptus trees near the coast. But many historic wintering spots in San Diego County and elsewhere no longer attract monarchs.
The ones here, we're pretty sure are not migrating at all.
Tom Merriman runs butterfly farms in Encinitas, and he raises monarchs to share their story with local children.
Here's a monarch egg right here.
He knows that the colorful insects face challenges, especially early in their life cycle when other insects like flies pose a threat.
And there's bacterial infections, there's viral infections. If they get into mold or mildew or fungus, it's going to probably kill them. So there's a lot that can go wrong, and that's before any predators even.
But he says monarchs are also good at survival. The milkweed they eat makes them noxious to most birds, and their persistent, friendly, social behavior might be why the term social butterfly remains popular.
It's a really prolific butterfly. They're serious about reproduction.
And while the insects are resilient, they do require milkweed for their survival. Fortunately for the monarchs, there is plenty of milkweed in San Diego County. Eric Anderson, KPBS News.
Get ready for art to come alive. Wonderspaces opens in San Diego today and runs through the summer. KPBS video journalist Chris Arciaga shows us what we can expect.
My name is Margaret Noble. I live in San Diego. I am here at Wonderspaces with the interactive sound art exhibit I've made. So the name of my exhibit is Drift, and that refers to the idea of letting go and experiencing the work completely through other senses besides your visuals or your eyes. And with the headphones and the goggles on, the door will close and you'll have 3.5 minutes to navigate a surround soundscape in a labyrinth web of ropes and tactile materials. So you're feeling things underfoot, you're feeling ropes, you're feeling the walls, and then really your ears. Your ears are really kind of guiding you and sending you signals from all around, and you will make the choices on where you want to move and how the visuals will come to your mind, right? Your mind sight. Not the literal visual, but what comes into your head. Even strangers will talk to each other about what happened, and so I think that shared knowledge sort of relates to this idea of what we have in common and how we connect. But the key is to just let go and with their bodies and their minds and their ears to see what emerges.
If Wonderspaces isn't your thing, how about celebrating all things avocado? A special avocado festival is happening this weekend in San Diego. Plus, party with Jennifer Lopez and spend a moody night under the stars with your favorite TV folk rockers. Here with details is KPBS arts editor Nina Guerin.
We love our avocados here in San Diego, so much that there's an entire festival devoted to the green fruit. Avoolution Fest is a day-long event that blends art installations and live music with avocados. Listen to bands like St. Lucia and Lost Kings as you sample avocado-themed treats and cocktails prepared by local food trucks. Make sure to bring your camera because the place will be peppered with avocado art installations that will be the envy of all your Instagram friends. Jennifer Lopez turns 50 next month, and to celebrate, she created a glitzy, party-themed tour that stops in San Diego on Monday. This is Lopez's first tour in 6 years, so expect everything to be over the top, from costumes covered in sequins and feathers to cutting-edge choreography. As for the concert, it will focus on her hits from the last 20 years, like On the Floor and Jenny from the Block. And it'll also feature performances by stars from her reality TV show, World of Dance. If you prefer a more melancholy kind of evening, you'll get that over at the Father John Misty and Jason Isbell concert.
Another night on the street, all bug-eyed and babbling.
Soulful indie rocker Josh Tillman, known better as Father John Misty, started out as a drummer for the band Fleet Foxes, but his earnest folk rock can be heard regularly on shows like This Is Us, True Detective, and Riverdale. Jason Isbell first got noticed when he was in the southern rock group Drive-By Truckers, but over the years he's earned more fans thanks to his solo project, Jason Isbell and the 400 Unit, where he performs alt country that also makes for good TV and movie music. For KPBS Arts, I'm Nina Guerin.
If you're planning on getting out this weekend to go to Wonderspaces or the Avocado Festival, you're probably hoping the weather cooperates. Meteorologist Dajia Swad has your weekend forecast.
We're tracking out some cold air coming behind a front that's going to be impacting portions of Nevada as well as north and central California. In fact, some gusty winds going to be likely into Sacramento. So if you're headed there, keep that in mind. Some wind gusts up to 45 miles per hour and humidity is pretty low. So fire risk is likely. Now down into our area, San Diego, not too concerned with too much in the way of precipitation. In fact, tonight, no precipitation, but plenty of low clouds with a low of 61. And if you're out towards Oceanside, dropping down to 60 and cooling down to 52 in Mount Laguna. As you head further inland, getting away from the low clouds, Borrego Springs, a low of 68 with just a few clouds likely to be seen tonight. Now for your Saturday, lots of sunshine, warmer air moving into Sacramento and windy conditions here down in towards Southern California. We will start to notice a warming trend as we continue through the early week, but not feeling too bad tomorrow. Right where we should be, lower 70s for Oceanside and San Diego, topping off at in the upper 90s for Borrego Springs and 73 in Mount Laguna, and still some cloud cover to reach Mount Laguna into tomorrow's forecast. The early week, lots of heat building for the West Coast. We'll continue to see some heavy rain into portions of Georgia and the Carolinas. If you're headed there, do anticipate some delays because storms have been pretty consistent, and then once you get to the ground level, well, flooding is going to be an issue. But here at home, no wet weather once again. We'll see some low clouds for tonight into your Saturday morning, and we'll see temperatures warm up near 80 degrees Monday and Tuesday at the coast, then slowly cooling off into your Wednesday and late week. We'll be topping off in the mid-80s Sunday. Lots of sunshine inland areas, 88 on Monday and a high of 87 on Tuesday. Warm air early week also being felt in the deserts. We'll be hitting 106 for your high on Tuesday. So you definitely want to stay hydrated and don't forget the sunscreen. Into the 70s for the next several days. Into the mountains, we'll be topping off at 79 on Tuesday. There's our push of warm air, and the remaining in the upper 70s for Wednesday. But at this time, not a lot of wet weather. Reporting for KPBS News, I'm your meteorologist, Dajia Swad. Back to you.
We're joined now by George Belch with SDSU's Fowler College of Business for this week's Friday Business Report. So, George, as part of a lawsuit settlement, Civic San Diego is no longer going to oversee downtown development, including new construction projects. What might this mean for the future of downtown development?
Well, what we're saying is that the city council is now going to basically take over overseeing redevelopment. You have to back up a little bit. Civic San Diego was formed in 2012. The state decided, passed a bill dissolving all the redevelopment districts, and then that got rid of the Center City Development Corporation. Civic San Diego was formed, was pretty much left to do a lot of the same things. Center City Development Corporation had been around since 1975. They had overseen the development of Horton Plaza, the Convention Center, Petco Park, the East Village. A lot of people feel they did a great job getting things through in a timely manner. But there were also a lot of political issues here. A lot of people felt that Civic San Diego, once it got put in force in 2012, was too close to the developers, that things were moving too quickly, that they weren't listening to labor. There were a lot of conflicting interests. A lawsuit was filed in 2015 challenging them. This has been going on for years, and now we're finally seeing some resolution, with part of the resolution being to change what their mandate is and to move the responsibility for approving the office buildings, the residential towers, any new building downtown back to the city council.
Will this likely speed things up or slow things down?
Well, what we need to see now is what happens. A lot of people are very concerned that it will take longer, that they're going to ask for more oversight. I think one thing we're clearly going to see is that new projects are going to have to be more labor friendly. Right now, the labor movement played an important role in this lawsuit. And what's going to happen is that you're going to probably have to work with the unions to move things along. I think the big fear that developers have is that it's just going to take too long. Civic San Diego and then their predecessor moved things along in a very timely manner, and really we see it reflected downtown, all the building that's happened there in a short time period. I think most people feel it's been positive. The big concern would be, would there be too much red tape? We know there's already so much red tape in California. Will this add to it? And could that keep big projects away?
Moving on, Pro Flowers has filed for bankruptcy and has shut down its San Diego location. Now 167 people locally are without a job. So what happened to this online commerce pioneer?
You know, if you back up, Pro Flowers was one of the first real e-commerce companies in San Diego. They got formed in 1998, right around the .com boom. They had a really strong run. They got integrated into a company called Provide Commerce in like 2014 or so. They opened some other fruits and confectionaries, I believe Cherry Farms and others. They got bought by FTD. Who wanted them for that flower segment, which was a huge part of their business. But basically what happened here is that FTD was more or less the Fords, the Chevys, the Chryslers, in an industry that was getting overtaken by Porsches and Ferraris. The e-commerce business was just moving very quickly, and they really weren't keeping up. They weren't investing in technology. They kind of admitted in their bankruptcy filing that they were managing for short-term profits. They weren't making the investments back into technology, databases, et cetera, that their competitors were. Like anybody else, Amazon, the big tech giant, now sells flowers. There are other smaller niche firms, companies such as Urban Stems and others that sell flowers. They're a little more transparent. They move quicker. They have same-day delivery. And these were things that I think Pro Flowers just could not keep up with.
Finally, Jeopardy this week has experienced a ratings boom, actually beating out some other popular shows such as The Bachelorette. But now that the longtime returning champion is out, George, do you think that this game show is going to be able to hang on to its lead?
People love to see people win. People were really entertained by his knowledge. He got 97% of his questions correct. Even the night he lost, he didn't miss a question, but unfortunately he didn't get the daily doubles. Back to the ratings, there's no doubt this has been great for Jeopardy. They'll go back down a little, but I think what Jeopardy has to hope is maybe it brought some new people in. Maybe it brought in some younger viewers. The big challenge Jeopardy has is like the rest of traditional television, young people aren't watching as much TV, but maybe that'll bring them in for that half hour a night. They'll go on and test their brain power against the champions on the show.
Well, that wraps up this week's Friday Business Report. Thank you so much for being with us.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Threatened new tariffs on Mexico and the impact on business here in San Diego. The rise of violent crime in some local neighborhoods, and the Sheriff's Department reveals how it responded to complaints about officers. Join us for the KPBS Roundtable tonight at 8:30. I'm Judy Woodruff. Tonight on the NewsHour, a disappointing monthly jobs report comes out amid concerns over the potential for an economic slowdown. Coming up at 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thanks for joining us. Have a great weekend.